Happy birthday, Buddha. Thank you all, and happy birthday to your own awakening happening every single moment. There's one other thing, there's two other things that the Buddha taught, that we create the world we can be pushed around by the world. There's two other things that the Buddha taught. We create our world, or we can be pushed around by it. Depends on how we live our life. It's not what we do, it's how we do it. So today I want to share, this title of this talk is Enlightenment in Dementia. I wonder how many of you know somebody or work with people that have dementia? Show of hands. Yeah, wow. So a lot of us, me too. My father-in-law has dementia. My teacher has dementia, and it's just something that's been on my mind a lot more lately. And I just wanted to share just my own thoughts about it, and maybe from a practice angle, what it means what it could potentially mean for us. I'm no expert on dementia or the psychology around it, but just these are all my own musings. But as I was thinking about dementia, maybe one of the reasons why people are, I don't know, do people feel, my assumption is that people feel some degree of frustration or anxiety around those who have dementia. I know that's been my personal experience, is that I feel the frustration of trying to be with somebody who doesn't remember what they're talking about or who you are. And as I reflect a little bit more on this, I wonder. And one of the things my teacher, I remember we were eating. It was one of more than 1,000 meals we ate together, and she said, "We're not eating food. We're eating memories," and that really hit me hard. I thought, "Wow, that's really a profound thing to say. We eat memories." What is she saying? We're not actually eating the food. We're not actually being mindful of what we're eating when we're eating it. Rather, we have an expectation of a flavor, of a taste, before we put the food in our mouth. And so we're eating memories. We're not just we're not actually tasting what we're eating, especially if we eat the same thing over and over again. And there's something familiar about certain foods and the memories they contain. And you especially feel that when you live in a foreign country for some time and you're not eating the foods you're used to, and then all of a sudden you get some food that you're used to. And what happens is this triggers all kinds of memories of those foods and the people you ate with and how you felt when you ate those foods. And in the same way, when somebody has dementia, it calls into question it's a kind of, people hold our memories. Especially if it's somebody that we know well or that knows us well. It could be a parent that has it. And if they have dementia, then their memory of who we are is called into question. It gets shaken up. And it can even shake up our own identity of who we are too. Because a lot of times we base our sense of self on what other people think of us, about what other people think we are, about what other people think we're supposed to be. And we fit our life into that mold that somebody else has made for us. What happens when that person's, and we especially listen, when we're young, we especially listen to our parents. As we get older, maybe we start to listen more to our friends and their ideas and expectations of who we're supposed to be. But dementia calls all that stuff into question, especially if we've been living based on somebody else's idea of who we're supposed to be. It calls into question our own identity when we're working with people with dementia, or it has that potential, especially if that person is close to us. So this can be also a very liberating event. If we've been living somebody else's, there's a Zen priest who's also a Catholic priest. Not a Zen priest. He's a Catholic priest, but he was given the permission to teach Zen by Tetsugen Glassman Roshi. His name is Father Kennedy. He's written a couple of books on Zen and Christianity to kind of tie those two together. But one of the things he said at a retreat I attended, he said the most depressing thing in the world is living somebody else's idea of what our life is supposed to be. And as a 20-something, hearing that, I was really, it stuck with me. So we have this kind of unique opportunity when we're faced with dementia of rethinking or reimagining who we are, not based on somebody else's ideas of who we are, but who maybe not even who we think we are, but to let go of those identity markers. And that can be tremendously freeing. So I want to share a story that my teacher shared with me when she was in Japan training. There's a very interesting thing that occurred in the late 1970s, early 80s that most people don't even know about. It was called the East-West Spiritual Exchange. It was between Catholic monastics and Zen Buddhist priests. And from what I understand, there's some writing about this event that took place. It took place over several years. Every other year, the Benedictine monks would go to Japan and practice in Japanese Zen temples, and then the Zen priests would go to, I think it was Belgium, and practice in the Catholic monasteries. So if you can imagine, one year it was a group of Belgian nuns that came to the women's monastery where my teacher was training, and these are nuns in their full habits, right? If you know what a nun looks like, their full habits and the headgear and everything, and they're sitting zazen facing a wall. That's a different image of a nun than I was used to growing up. So they would participate for a full month in the daily schedule of the Zen priests, the Zen nuns in this case, and then a couple of years later, the Zen priests would go to the monastery, the Catholic monastery. They'd sit in church in the pews, and even receive Eucharist, even though that was probably forbidden at that time, and even today. But some priests would do that. In any case, during one of these exchanges between the Catholics and the Buddhists, the Catholic nuns went to visit a Japanese Zen Roshi, and they found him really, they just loved him. He was talking wonderful things and sharing about the Buddha's teaching. He was sharing, giving all this stories around enlightenment. He was making them laugh. He made them feel like they were right at home, even though they were in Japan. And my teacher was the one translating for him. So this was, she had the ability to translate Japanese as well as French. She knew French as well. So she was translating, going back and forth between Japanese, putting it in her head as English, and then retranslating it into French. You can imagine the amount of work that must have required her to do all of that. So these nuns went away from this Zen Roshi feeling so lifted and so happy. Well, a couple of years later, they returned to, and they wished to visit this Roshi again. And he had completely forgotten all of them. His dementia had advanced to such a degree that he didn't know who they were, and they were, of course, saddened by this. And so they asked my teacher, where did his enlightenment go? They saw him as a deeply enlightened person, and now it just seemed to have gone. And my teacher's response to their question was, it's right there. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. Right? So we have certain ideas around enlightenment, and then it's got to be a specific state of mind. But this calls into question our ideas around enlightenment. And there's a fascicle of Dogen called Great Enlightenment, where he says some really fascinating things about enlightenment. He says, great awakening is realized. So this is it's called Daigo, great Daigo, satori, or realization or awakening. Great awakening is realized, and arriving at the way without awakening. That's how we kind of come into the Zendo. We come without awakening, observing awakening, studying it, right? That's what we're doing, and playing with awakening, losing awakening, and letting it go. These are everyday matters among the Buddhas and ancestors. Right? So we want to hold on, right? There's something about us that we want to grasp onto something, and we can. It's easier to see the grasping when it comes to material things, right? How we grasp onto things. We want that thing that we think is going to make us happy. But then we do the same thing with spiritual stuff too. Enlightenment becomes that thing that we grasp after. Oh, if I just had that, I hold on. But Zen doesn't let us hold on to enlightenment either. We've got to let go of that too. There's something bigger. There's something bigger going on than just these ideas of awakening, these particular states of mind. And the freedom to let go of even awakening, once one has that, the freedom to let go of awakening, isn't that something to sit with? Isn't that something to nourish? Isn't that something to relish, that you can let go of awakening? You can let go of it even if you don't have it. You might go, I don't have awakening. Good, let go of that. All right. So that's what I wanted to share this morning and leave you with as we continue to celebrate the birthday of the Buddha, the awakening of the Buddha. To know that that's something that we're all meant to share in. This great awakening. The great awakening of the Buddha isn't just for himself, it's for all of us. And we partake in that awakening just by remembering, recalling the Buddha. You can do it by sitting, practice, meditation. You can do it by eating the Buddha's birthday cake. You can do it by offering flowers and incense and candles and foods to the Buddha. You can do that. You can partake in the Buddha's awakening just by being a kinder person and by developing your own understanding of yourself and others. And that's what we're about. So thank you very much. All right. How are we doing here?
Just fine. It's 11:20.
Okay, so we have a few minutes if there's any questions, or we can get right to the party. Or comments, anything?
Once you said the word party,
Yeah.
all the questions went away.
Any thought of enlightenment anyway.
Okay. All right. Announcements or any announcements?
Oh, gosh. Let's see, where are we? Beginning of April.